you have two different types of cops. State troopers, man, I don't know what their deal is. I shouldn't say that because I have. But I worked a lot of security at this point. I was just doing odd and end jobs, and worked for FedEx for 5 years. And at 27, I remember my goal, my original plan. So a spec war contract is 6 years instead of 4. I was like, I'll get out. I'll be 24. I'll go become a cop. I want to be. I've always wanted to be in law enforcement. So I do that, or I try to do that, and I just remember thinking, like, dude, there's no way in hell they're gonna hire me. Like, I'm a loose cannon.
Yeah, you don't have a felony.
No, but let's face it, man.
And your juvenile record would be sealed.
I didn't even have one. No.
Right.
Yeah, no. The only thing that I even had was like a vandalism from that dip flying out of my mouth and they were like, that's just
silliness.
It is. Yeah. No, so but we towed the line a lot. We did run from the cops one night. It was me, a guy named Simon, and Cameron, and the power went out to this group home, the last one I was at, and we snuck out, and we were down, and it's fall in Georgia, and we're not thinking this through. We're down this huge embankment. We see the cop car pull up, hit his lights. We run down this huge embankment. It's like 10-foot drop.
You're a kid.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But he's like looking for us, and we're crouched down in the leaves. We're laying down flat, and he shuts his light. He hits us with the oldest trick in the book. He turns his lights off and just waits. So I stand up real slow, and Cameron. I thought Simon was standing up at this point. I stand up, dude, and I take a step back. I step on Simon's head. He's like, "You stepped on my fucking head." Cop pops around the corner, his flashlight. He's like, "Gotcha!" And he takes off. He's after us. We're running through like this pecan orchard, dude, and I just see his light bouncing behind me. Cameron runs, and Cameron's like 6'4", just lanky, just going. We come to the other end of this clearing to a road at a red light. There's a box truck, and you know how they have those little like ledges with handles you can, like a U-Haul or whatever?
Yeah.
Dude, he runs and jumps on the back of that while it's at a red light, and it takes off with him in the back of it. And we wound up sneaking back we used to stuff our bed, make it look like someone was laying in it. What we did, and that's kind of want to emphasize, man, we did stupid shit. It was, honestly, looking back on it, I wouldn't change a thing. So, but yeah, 27, I finally was like, I'm working 2-3 jobs, but there's no way they're going to probably hire me, but put an application in, put in for 3 different departments. And the one I'm at now, God, it was quick.
Well, you have to go to school or something, right? Like
the academy? Oh, no, I mean just the hiring process. Before you go to the academy.
Oh, okay. You have to be hired by a police station before you can go to the academy, or
you can sponsor. So it's called being sponsored by an academy. That means they pay for you to go through, but you have to go through. So if a department is going to sponsor you, you have to go through all the hoops. Oh, you're good, man. So we went through like, I'm trying to think. It was probably about 4 months. But you have like the background, the polygraph, fingerprinting. Interviews, physical screening test, written test, the MMPI I was talking about. It was a lot of stuff, but my background investigator, I was telling him, and we clicked really well. And I've heard horror stories about background investigators. Like some of them are just and what they do is they write a report on you and they send it in and they give a recommendation or not.
Right.
And I'm like, look, man, I've had my license suspended before. This is my background. And he's like, that's life experience. And I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, what do you, kind of like what your attitude was. He's like, dude, you haven't been convicted of a crime.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, but my interaction with law enforcement, because at the end of the day, I knew when I was being a shithead, when I wasn't. I had a kind of a neutral stance or perspective towards cops.
Right.
Like as an adult, prior to, applying, if I saw a cop in a gas, I just didn't talk. I didn't really have a reason.
Right.
And to be honest with you, now that I'm a cop, I hate when people walk up and make small talk. Just start your shift. Bro. Like, yeah. Or what's the, I didn't do it. Like, just shit. I can't stand it, man. I can't stand small talk. I like if I'm going to have a conversation, I want it to be, intellectually stimulating and somewhat. But so, yeah, I mean, he was very like, he was like, dude, you bring a lot to the table. I'm like, what? Like, fuck, okay. So he's like, I can't make any promises. I really, really like you. You seem like a good guy. You have beat the odds, all this stuff. And wound up basically saying that he said, I'm going to put in a report and recommend that they hire you. And dude, it was nerve-wracking because we had so many applicants. And that's why I was telling you earlier, it was competitive. This was in 2018. And get through all the stuff, and he's giving me updates. He's like, hey, 6 people for 3 spots. We're down to 6 people. And then it was 4. And then it was 3 for 3. And I'm like, I remember texting him. I said, well, I got a 100% chance, right? He goes, no. He says, we got a backup list. He said, if you fall out and we have say they hire 2 and one of us falls off, they pull from a backup list.
Okay.
So I was like, well, shit. So, I didn't get my hopes up anymore. I'm like, 3 for 3, I'm good. And wound up getting hired. So, and then it all started.
4 years ago, right? So,
well, it was actually 9/11 is when I got sworn in of 18. So, a little over 3.5.
Right.
Yeah, after that, it was basically, I did a month-long orientation period. And then that's where all the fun stuff like getting tased, getting pepper spray, doing all your extra, and people ask me all the time about that. Like,
I was just thinking to myself, how does that feel?
I got my video.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the video, and if you're interested in buying a painting from me, my contact information is in the description box. Back to the video.
I got my taser video. I'll show it to you. It's awful. It is. I'm not kidding you, man.
Which one's worse?
What's that?
Which one's worse?
Well, that's a hard question because it's like 5. The spray, the pepper spray is definitely.
Pepper spray's worse
Oh
than
my
being tased.
god! Oh my god! I remember panicking, dude. I panicked. I was outside and they spray you above the eyebrows, and you got like a little 10 feet, and there's a dummy, and then you gotta handcuff somebody, and I'm like, that's all I gotta fucking do. And I'm blinking. They're like, blink, and they're like, walk forward, and you gotta like do some strikes on this dummy. Then you got to go through, and you got to, and at the end of it, you arrest someone. You arrest someone, and you've got to read so OC is oleoresin capsaicin. It's pepper extract.
Okay.
So that's what makes and then they have CS, which is like a irritant for your respiratory system.
Right.
And that's what they had in boot camp. I got the gas chamber in boot camp, and that was just, you feel like you're suffocating. I got that twice in boot camp and in A school because of my job. I had to get it again. I was a shipboard firefighter. So anyways, but the taser thing, we go through a course, and they just hand you your taser. Cool. And then you go through and you go outside. And so the way that works is it has a cartridge, and they're called blast doors, and they open up, and there's 2 probes that shoot out 25 feet, and they contact. And the further the spread, the worse the NMI is, which is neuromuscular incapacitation. It locks you up.
Right.
But and I'm thinking I remember a supervisor, I asked him how it felt. He's like, it just feels like tensing up every muscle in your body really, really hard. I'm like,
It doesn't sound so bad.
no, it's what orgasms are, right? I didn't know, but so we go through this whole training. We get to the end of the day, and we shoot this 6-foot cardboard cutout. Oh, so I had a dud. One of my cartridges failed to fire. There's a switch on the side of the taser. You have to switch that off before you. If you do not switch that off and you grab that while that current's still going through, it'll bite you. And it bit me. And I was like, oh, shit. And I looked at the taser instructor and I said, is this what's going to feel like? She goes, but through your whole body. Matt, honestly, dude, I was like, is this worth it? I'll just call FedEx and go back. Dude, I was so fucking nervous. And I had on a nice collared shirt and one of the detectives. So at this point, it's like 3 PM. All the women from the office, all the detectives from out back, they start lining the fucking sidewalk. And they're sitting there drinking sodas, watching. And I'm like, this is a spectacle. This is gonna be bad.
How many guys get tased? Just you, or several guys?
Well, so it just depends on who's in your group and if they've been tased or not. They give you a certificate.
Well, it's all worth it.
Yeah, it is. Hell yeah, it is. I get a certificate from Axon. But at the end of the day, it's good because for whatever reason, if you go to court, you say, "Hey, Your Honor, I've been tased with." They tase you with your taser.
Right.
Well, actually, I didn't, but normally you do. But anyway, so and detective comes on. And he's like, "That's a nice collar shirt you got on." He says, "Why don't you go back to my cubicle? I got an old Dare shirt in there. Put that on." He said, "Because those probes are gonna rip right through that shirt." I was like, "Oh, I mean, I am so scared, man. I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my god." And I honestly, when I get in situations like that, I'm like, let's just get it over with. Yeah. I don't want the anticipation. It's terrible. And so they, one person takes one arm, one person takes the other arm. And one of the officers told me, he said, "Just breathe out, exhale all your air. You can't scream." And he said, "She's going to say taser, taser, taser. And that third taser, she's going to pop your ass. So just make sure you got all your air out by then." So I tried that. I let out this huge like this. And I remember when it hit me, man. The closest sensation I can describe it is like a saw blade. Just everything. It was like sharp stabbing sensations all throughout your body. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's only 5 seconds, and when it's done, it's done. You're like.
Yeah, but by that point, you're on the ground, aren't you?
Well, if I wasn't being held up, dude. Oh yeah. You'll see guys. Just go on any YouTube video like guys getting tased. You'll see their body lock up and they'll hit the ground like a board. Like they'll do a fucking plank and they'll hit the ground.
Have you ever tased anybody?
No, thankfully not. No, I don't. And you know what? I tell people, I'm like, look, man, you don't want to go through this. But it's one of those things where, and we don't use. I don't know any officer that I've ever talked to has ever uses pepper spray, unless you've got because it's messy, and so you have 3 levels of contamination, and so even if I spray you, I'm getting level 2. I'm getting a byproduct. I'm getting exposed.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
Yeah.
It takes days for it to fully go away.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend that tased. I mean, not tased. I had a girlfriend that pepper sprayed some kids. She was walking out of basically like a record store type thing where they used to have CDs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she was walking, and these kids that were probably 14 or 15 years old started circling her on their bicycles.
Oh, okay.
And they were saying nasty stuff and this and that. She was like, "Look, cut it out." And she was trying to get to her car, and then she said, "I really couldn't get to the car." And she said, I thought it was funny and cute, and then I thought, okay, it's not cute.
No.
She said, then I got scared. She just started realizing that they're way bigger than me. And she pulled out she said, "I just reached in and went whoosh and started hitting them." And she said they literally all of them went through the stream because they were riding their bicycles. So, and then she said, but the wind caught it and hit me. She said, and I almost fell on the ground screaming.
And see, that's consumer grade shit. That's not police grade stuff. You can get police grade stuff, but it's.
Yeah, she was saying her eyes watered, her nose started running, everything. She said those kids screamed like you'd set them on fire.
Good. But you know what? The wrong person would pull out a gun and okay. I mean, you never know how someone's going to react. I don't know. I never did shit like that.
Yeah.
But it's nasty stuff, man. I never, if I got to go hands on with someone, it generally just depends on what the call is. So like what we were talking about with before, mental illness is huge. And, believe it or not, I was actually against. I know in Colorado they started doing it, and several other places out west, they have a counselor actually respond with the officer, and they'll kind of do a mental health assessment.
Right.
Or they'll try to intervene.
Right.
Because I agree with this. Some people react badly to the uniform. You could be nice as pot. I try to be as respectful as I can to people. And sometimes that's the only language they understand is dropping F-bombs and yelling at them. But I try not to resort to that. Just because it just takes energy, man. It's like, look, are you going to do what I need? If I need you to do this, are you going to do it? Or what's the plan? But we had a really, really mentally ill guy. And I thought it was drug induced, but apparently it wasn't. He hadn't taken his medication. He thought his mom was Janet Jackson. She's standing out in the street. 90-minute standoff. He's got a knife. And he would do these real quick, sudden lunges at you. And he had this crazy. And he put it back. He had a sheath. He had like a sheath. He put it on his belt. And the taser, like, even now, I kind of understand how powerful the mind is, but people, like, you can't fathom. This dude this was not drug induced. This is mental illness. He had not taken his medication.
Right.
He got tased point blank, and I watched him rip the probes out. Dude, it sent a shiver. I was like, I have never seen. This dude's like 130 pounds. And I was like, oh, shit. He's like, oh, so we're coaxing him outside. He's smoking a cigarette, and we're like, hey, man, you can smoke a cigarette. You know, why don't you put the knife down, man? He hasn't committed a crime. But he is, at this point, we're going to take him for immediate detention at a hospital to get evaluated. But the problem is, you got to take him in by force.
Right.
Because he's not going to go willingly. But he has a knife. So I saw that. When I saw that, man, I was like, oh, shit. Like, I've never, like, it's 50,000 volts. And he just ripped it out like it was, I don't know. So we're reassessing and everything. And then we wound up, you know, and I had only shot this beanbag thing in training one time, this less lethal shotgun. And the beanbags are heavy, they arc. And you have to be at least 20 feet away or it's lethal force. So it's scary to use. Got to be this, you know, be a minimum 20 feet away. You know, they're going to arc, so you have to adjust. And he's sitting down on the steps at this point. Oh, so the last 15 of the 90 minutes, he's not responding to any questions. He was talking to us at first in spurts. He winds up not responding at all. So I wound up getting it. And supervisor says, hey, when you've got a clear shot, you're authorized. And I remember looking at him and I'm like, hey, man, you know, put the knife down. I can't say his name, but I'm calling him by his name. I'm like, please, dude. He looks at me and he goes, you won't shoot me with that. I was like, I will, but I don't want to. So at this point, and I'm like, come on, man, please. I fire off like 4 rounds. And dude, like, I think it wound up breaking one of his shins and 3 or 4 ribs. And he was still fighting. He goes inside and he drops the knife and he starts peeing on the floor. I don't know why. He just starts peeing in the middle of the floor. So we bomb rush him while he's in the middle of pissing, dude, and just like we dog pile him. We get him cuffed, and then we get the ambulance there and we get him to the hospital. And wound up after he got his medication. He's like, I'm so sorry I did that, officer. I was like, Jesus Christ. So it's scary, man. Mental illness, you know, it's something they need to pour. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
There's tons of it in the medium. Dude. In the medium, I mean, just these guys.
The guy you had where were you at? Were you in a holding? The guy that jabs you in the eye, and he's like, "Man, I'm sorry."
Oh, you were pissing? Yeah. That was God. I don't know. I don't even know his name. He was
the turn
massive.
Of the yeah.
He just mentally in his head would get into these cycles where he would get himself upset and mad and get up and start. He would used to pace the fucking cell. And me and the other guy,
you don't have a lot of room to pace.
No, me and the other guy are like, this fucking guy is insane, and mumble to himself and everything. And then he'd lay back down, and 20 minutes later, he'd be perfectly happy and everything, and talk to you normal. And then suddenly he'd get into his head, and yeah, he was not. I mean, he wasn't even the most craziest person. I just happened to be trapped in the cell with him. I mean, there's tons of crazy guys. And bipolar disorder and just.
Yeah, I hate it, man. Like. It's so sad and I'm not from that area, but a lot of guys that I work with are, and they're like, man, I used to go to school with her, dude. She used to be beautiful. And now she's on the street, like, biting herself. You know, you're just meth and heroin. And, you know, I was always scared of drugs. And this is going to sound like a very generic political answer, but it's the honest God truth. I have smoked weed 3 times in my life. Well, I smoked it twice, and I ate it off of a honey bun once. Didn't do anything for me. I didn't like it. I really didn't. I was a drinker, and I was kind of like, I knew where it came from. Oh, we had a kid named Vernon at the bus stop at the group home, and he bought some weed from a guy up the street. This group home, dude, was the divider between so you had what was called the Bellevue. It was the ghetto. I mean, like, terrible. You had a nice neighborhood on this side, but you had the group home in between. So Vernon would go to the ghetto and get weed. And he's smoking weed one morning at the bus because the bus is coming to pick us up. And I see his eyes roll in the back of his head. He falls and he hit his head on a ledge. There's a concrete ledge that ran around the shrubs, the landscaping, like probably like a foot tall. He hit his head on it. So he's not getting on the bus. He's We don't know what happened to him. Come to find out, they put some kind of cleaner. They tried to poison him. Because you remember I was telling you, all these kids were gangbangers.
Yeah.
So these kids up the street, he's like a blood and they're a Crip, and so they're
They
like,
sold him some bad
sold
stuff.
some bad stuff. So that stuck with me. I was like, I don't.
You know what K2 is?
Yes.
Yeah, they smoke that and
The synthetic stuff.
It was
Spice.
horrible. These guys would get it, and you'd be laying in bed sleeping, and it'd be 1 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, you just start hearing somebody and just losing it, and you're like, "What the fuck?" And they would lose it to sometimes to such an extreme that the other inmates couldn't calm them down. It'd be so bad.
You gotta get a guard to come in there.
Right, the cops would come.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is in the low, so it was an open bay.
Oh, that's
so
right.
they have cubes. So I know that 3 cubes over, something's going on, and the next thing you know, the lights come on, and there's all the guards come rushing in, and they grab the guy, and they drag him out, and what's so fucked up is it's like, okay, he clearly got a bad batch. The other guys that also got the same batch know this is going on.
Still use it.
They're afraid that the whole place is going to get shut down,
Oh.
and they're thinking, we better do this right away.
Oh.
So they immediately take it. Now you've got 3 guys in the other unit. You got this guy, and the cops are just like, what's happening?
Or you did 12 and a half years of this. God.
My thought process is, you saw what just happened.
Oh, they love it.
And they're thinking, that's the good stuff.
Give me the shit that James OD'd on, bro.
Right.
Give me the shit they sit there, and I hate to say this, man, because I want to be, and people always say, like I hear these people that go, you should give them 3 tries, and on the 4th one, just let them die. And I'm like, bro, if you ever watch someone agonal breathing in front of you, and you're not going to let them die.
Yeah.
You're not. Like, he's overdosing on heroin. He's not, he's hurting himself. Or if he has kids, that's a whole different thing. But I'm speaking just in general when it pertains to that guy.
Yeah.
If he's in a house by himself and he's doing heroin, it's the same concept. Like, I've went to, and I don't know why they do this, they will shove ice up the person's ass that's overdosing. They'll try to shock them. Or every time, most of the time, when you go to an overdose, when you get back there, they'll be, I'll always, I'm not kidding you, I'll go, where's your bathroom? Or where are they at? They'll point in the bathroom, they're in the shower, soaking wet. Because they try to wake them up. They didn't want us to come.
Yeah, of course.
And I tell these people, like, buy Narcan.
Yeah.
Buy Narcan. You can buy it. So, I mean,
That's
I'm
the
not
thing that they
advocating.
shoot in the heart, right? And that
it's
adrenaline?
a nasal. No, it's a nasal.
Oh, okay.
No. So we carry 4 milligrams.
But it's adrenaline, right? Isn't it?
No. So what it does is it surrounds the opioid receptors in the brain, and it shuts them off. It kills it. They can't get high from opioids.
Okay.
And it will stop. Now, it only works for a window. So when we give someone Narcan, we have to take them to the hospital whether they want to or not. We have to, because guys will, and fentanyl's a huge thing now, obviously. I don't understand it. It's a very scary thing. They had this shit called gray death. It's a powder. It's gray. It's like a purplish gray. And I got a batch of that on a traffic stop one night, and the bag was like that big, and my supervisor was like, that'll kill 100 people. He's like, put a respirator on, wear your fucking gloves. They have to stand there with you while you process it in evidence, because if you might inhale, I don't know. It just goes, some of it goes into the air, like it's a powder, so it can go into the air, and you
might get out,
yeah, it'll kill you. And I just don't understand it. I get if you are on it and how hard it would be to get off. Like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm a stimulant junkie. I love caffeine.
Yeah.
If you got me on cocaine, I would never get off of it.
Right.
I'd be done. So, or meth.
We had a guy at Coleman that took, this happened several times. Guy stripped down naked and was running around the compound. And so we're just watching this. Remember, the cops gathered around him. Well, no, he was taking his clothes off. The cops gathered around him, and then he stripped off his clothes. Stripped down naked.
They get hot.
Yeah. Well, the cops were like, he thought he was on fire. Cops at first, you thought he had a gun or something. They were like, oh! Like, he's naked. And then they looked at each other, and they were like, damn it. And then they all piled on him and grabbed him and dragged him away.
I was watching a body camera footage of Indianapolis. They had a guy downtown doing that, and they are sweating profusely, and it's just like trying to catch a grease pig.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's like LSD. We had a kid on LSD, and he was like 15, and hospital bed's pretty heavy, like a legit hospital bed.
Oh, yeah.
It's got
all
a
the
scale
machinery and everything.
It's got a scale on it and everything. Dude, this kid is making the hospital bed come off the floor. And we got him like tied down. I'm like, fuck. Like, Yeah, I would be. I can only imagine how it is. I've never been a corrections officer. I worked at a work release center for like one day with a security company. I did it like I filled in for a guy.
Right.
And they had to be in at 9, and you'd have guys come in at like 9:05. Like, hey man, I'm sorry I'm late. Could you sign me in? And I'm like, I guess. Like I'm 22 years old. I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
Hey, sorry for interrupting the video, but I want to let you guys know that if you join my Patreon at the top tier, every single month you get a different painting, and the contact information for my Patreon page is in the description. Back to the video.
And you know, that's the thing about being a cop that I really want. I'm glad I remembered this. You have two different types of cops, because I've had guys, and look, and I'm gonna drop a bomb on you. My wife is black.
Right.
I have 2 biracial kids. Or did I tell you that already?
You told me that on the phone.
Oh,
We
okay.
talked
I didn't
like
know if I
6 months ago.
All right. Yeah. So
because we were talking about
racism or
yeah, but we're yeah, I forget what we were talking about, Rodney King or something, or just
well,
racism
you know, I when it pertains to race, like I'll be honest with you, man, it never went, especially when I was younger, because that was my plan. I was like, okay, I'm 16, 17, special forces 6 years, law enforcement, retire, be done.
right.
But I grew up around black kids. All my friends were black, most of them. You got a few because, I mean, and I'll be honest with you, man, there wasn't a whole lot of, there were some, but the overwhelming majority were Hispanic and African American kids in these systems. We were the forgotten, you know, I don't want to say dregs of society, but we were the ones that, which I'm actually Turkish. My father came straight out of Turkey and came over to America. But, you know, I never had an idea. In fact, I thought about it one time. This kid, oh, fucking man, I hated this kid. At the freight dock, he found out that I was going to be a cop, and he's like, "You gonna go shoot some unarmed black people, huh?" And I was like,
Just an asshole.
I said, "No, I don't think I will." And I tried, and what really infuriated me, I said, "Look, man," I said, you know, I called him in the break room later. I said, "Bro, why'd you say that?" And he goes, "I'm just, that's what cops do." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm glad you know." I said, "Look, my wife is black. Not that it's any of your fucking business. I have 2 biracial kids." He goes, "Oh, so you're gonna kill your own family's kind?" He goes in deeper, and I'm like, "Bro."
Fucking douchebag.
I looked at him. I had to evaluate a decision, and I walked out. I'm like, is it worth it? It would be the sweetest thing. So, anyways, yeah, I never thought about it. I thought about it, and I was like, you know, it happens. And the shitty thing about it's no different than any other career, dude. You have a bad nurse. You have a bad doctor. You have a bad waitress at Chili's. You don't go, all fucking waitresses are, they're terrible. They'll spit in your food. And look at the evolution of the police uniform. Look at it, if you think about it. It started out, guys that I work with that started out had a 6-gun or 6-shot revolver, a nightstick, and a radio. Bare bones. I don't even know if they wore vests. Maybe they did. I'm sure they did, but you know, I'm talking like 80s and 90s. You know, it was like Annie Griffith.
Right.
You know, you're walking around and then now, I mean, you look at it now, it's militarized. It's very, you know, I mean, I can't stand coming home. I gotta take this shit off, take this off, take that off, take that off, take the radio off, undo this, you know, take the bullets out of my gun, put this up, put that up. And it's just we're getting more equipment coming. And it's one of those things where it's like, I vouch for it because it's like, you know, at the end of the day, some departments, and I'm not a political person. I've never voted before. I don't believe in I just don't like Joe Biden and Trump. You get these people like, Biden's an idiot. I think he's definitely senile.
There's some issues.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
It's sad though, because in a Republican conservative area as a cop, you're loved.
Right.
But you go through a Democratic, like look at the cities like Chicago and Portland and all these, like they can't find cops in their crime rate. So when they defunded the police in some of these cities, like the homicide rate went so high, and Biden's like, you could take some of the COVID funds and hire more cops with it. I was shocked he did that.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, you know, it's the people, the communities that pay so little into taxes are the ones that those are the ones that basically law enforcement is needed, and it's all over in that community. They need a ton of law enforcement in those, but they pay almost nothing in taxes. the communities that pay the most taxes almost need no law enforcement. There's no reason to have any cops. Those are rich areas. They pay in a bunch of taxes, but we don't really need police here. So I mean, it's just an odd situation.
Well, and like with that, they did I think it was a Gallup poll, I want to say, and like 85% of African Americans said they wanted more police activity in their neighborhood.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure if you got a job and you're just trying to be a normal citizen and go to work and come home, I mean, you don't have a problem with the police. If you're doing something scuzzy, then you don't want to see the police, or you hate the police.
And I love it when I'll get on a traffic stop by this one guy. I'm not even talking to him. He's a passenger in the car. Talking to the female driver. He goes, "Hey man, why y'all always fucking with people? What are you talking about?" And he's like, says some more stuff, basically along the lines. And I said, "Man," I said, "I pulled over because she swerved into my lane and almost hit me. And I'm in a fully marked police car."
Right.
Like, we all text and drive. We all speed. Most of us. Like, on the way here, I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I'm looking at my phone because I'm not from here. I don't want to miss a turn or whatever. I get that. And I am a very like, I'll pull over a driver like, "Hey, you're swerving," or "Hey, whatever. Oh, I was on my phone." And you can tell they're drunk or not. I'm like, okay, well, hey, listen, you have a good night. No ticket. No, I don't write tickets. And he just makes a problem out of nothing. I said, "You know what, man?" I said, "I wasn't fucking talking to you." And I said, "Step out of the vehicle." He's like, "I don't have to." I was like, "Yes, you do." I was like, "Step out of the vehicle." So I pulled him to the back and I said, "Listen, man." I said, "What's your deal?" He's like, "Man, Officer so-and-so." And I said, "What does that have to do with me?" I said, "Listen, bro, I have no problem with you." I said, "I don't want any problem with you." And I was like, if you hate cops so much, don't go picking a fight with one. I was like, I'm not trying to. And he calmed down. I said, "Listen, I get it, because I've had bad run-ins. Actually, I got state troopers, man. I don't know what their deal is. I shouldn't say that because I have one state trooper that's he's a good dude. But I got pulled over. Not kidding you. We bought a brand new car in 2013 and the plates were expired. Paper tags that you get pulled over. And I'm gonna catch a lot of flack for this, but don't tell. Cop asks you if you know why they pulled you over, just say no.
Yeah.
Because you say yeah, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, you did that too, huh?" So he pulls me over. He's like, "You know why I pulled you over?" And I said, my paper tag on my car is like 3 days expired." And he's like, it's a state trooper. He walks to the back of the car and goes, "I'm gonna write you a ticket for that too." I said, "Okay, what'd you pull me over for then?" "You went straight in a turn lane." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, there's an arrow here." I'm like, "What? It's faded. I don't see a fucking arrow." Anyways, he's like, "You're gonna walk." And Bria's pregnant. I was like, "I'm not walking. I'm not walking anywhere." He's like, "You're gonna walk." I was like, and I can feel my face getting hot. I'm like, I'm about to go to jail or get shot. I don't know what's gonna happen to me, but like, heart starts beating. I'm like, I'm not walking anywhere.
Well, why would you walk? I don't understand. Because the
I
tax.
don't know. I don't know. But he found out that I wasn't gonna budge. There for a minute, it was like the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, because he's not giving in, I'm not giving in. And he finally goes, "All right, I'll follow you." And I had the GPS on my phone pulled up for the BMV. It was like 20 minutes away from our house. I'm like, it's not a big deal. And I've stopped people like that before. They've had their tags and they're 2 or 3 weeks expired. And it's like, "Look, man, just get it taken care of. All right, man, have a good night."
All right.
Because the caveat is, you've had situations where if you stop a car for a small infraction and you find out something big. So that's how Timothy McVeigh was found out. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So he was pulled over.
Driving a car with was an expired.
Yeah. And found out this guy killed like 160 people.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's an extreme, case, but you find human trafficking victims that way. If you stop the car, I just like to do a quick assessment if I do. I'm not a big, I don't know. There's different types of cops that like to do different things. I enjoy calls for service. So, and another thing I want to touch on was like the federal thing. Like, we have had guys that go, like we had a guy quit and go FBI. And another guy went to work for, basically he's a white hat hacker. So he does what's called penetration testing. They will set up and try to invade companies' websites with ransomware and stuff like that. And he's like, "Dude, it fucking sucks. I'm sitting in a cubicle." Because of where I've worked, we've done a few details with the Secret Service. So I got to talk with a few of those guys. And they're like, "Dude, let me explain it to you this way. I watched a dumpster one time for a week because when the motorcade rolled through, someone popping out of a dumpster in an alley, it's like, just fucking move the dumpster,
Jesus
bro. Like,
God.
shit. Or 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes before the motorcade rolls through, you can't just check the dumpster. I don't know. So they have a lot more, like, I didn't want to deal with that. And then with federal, going wherever they need you, I think that's how that works. I want to go home every night, work in the community in which I live, and I enjoy calls for service. Like, we get to see, one of my field training officers, like, it's a front row seat to the best show on earth. It really is.
What? Maybe I'm calls for service. I don't know.
Oh, just getting dispatch or something. Like, units being route to, subject outside the store with his shirt off, waving around a knife.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shit, we'll go to that, see what that's all about.
Okay.
And then, my community's a mixed bag, but when I first got in field training, I'm like, oh shit, what have I got? I'm gonna get killed. Because the way the dispatchers, the way they interpret shit, sometimes is way off from what's actually happening.
Right.
And it's through most of the time it's not their fault, it's the way the caller is doing it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a guy out here, and you get there and you're like, the guy's like, I don't have a knife. I'm not punching anybody in the face. I'm not raping anyone.
Right.
So you're like, oh, bunch of nothing. But then you have calls where, it's legit. I just enjoy a faster paced environment, and being a detective even, I don't enjoy that. I don't want to have a caseload.
So you don't want to be a detective?
It sounds cool. You watch all these,
Yeah. Well.
you watch the federal, they got the
Yeah.
and they're in the suit and they got the little microphone in their. Yeah, I said, man, is your suit bullet resistant? Because I bought this from Macy's.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay, but
You couldn't do undercover work.
me?
You look like a cop.
Do you know?
I would
don't.
never believe
Oh,
you.
what? Well, you know what? It's the.
Even with the beard. Yeah.
Hey, man.
If you shave the beard,
You know what's funny?
There's
I'd look
no
worse.
way. It'd be
Oh,
way
yeah.
worse.
I could just pass off as Jewish then. I got the nose, man. You know what's funny is I was at this 7-Eleven or whatever in a ghetto, and these two kids, they're like kids, bro. They're like 14, 15. And the Indian guy looks past them, looks at me, and he's like, go outside. They're not related. Like, one kid's black, one's white. This guy's Indian. So I go up, pay for my gas and stuff, and he's like, "You a cop?" And I was like, "No, I'm in like dirty ass,
Right.
because a freight dock, you would get filthy. I look like I just crawled out of a fucking dumpster." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So I go outside, and I see, as I walk out, I see the kids go back in. I was telling Bria about it. She's like, "Yeah, you look like a."
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, can't help it. Yeah, the undercover thing, even that, I'm just like, oh, man. They don't even really do buys anymore, I don't think. I don't know. They do, like, confidential informants and stuff like that. But, yeah, I would never. Because then they'll be like, "You a cop?" Like, "No, are you a cop?" Like, "You look like a cop." "No, you look like a cop." You're just doing that. Like,
No.
no, I don't. Yeah, I enjoy, I just enjoy going on calls, man. And things may change. I did want to do the canine thing, but that's a big commitment. The canine,
Yeah.
kind of the dog. It's a 5-year commitment. That's a long time. And that dog is with you. Well, and you imagine if someone goes, "Okay, I give up," and the dog, you have to do what they call a callback. You call the dog back, and it's like, it's those dogs. Like, I'm kidding. I'm going to keep going. They would carry a checkbook around. They'd write them like a check. Like, "Hey, if you settle this out of court, here's a check right now."
Oh, really?
Carry a fucking checkbook. I just write you a check and you go.
I know my brother-in-law had a lawsuit. I'm pretty sure
I got
They
bit by him before.
right. Well, this dog was the dog was chasing a fleeing suspect, and he just suddenly the dog decided that this guy was involved.
Yeah.
And jumped and bit that guy, and my brother-in-law was representing him and was suing the police. They're like, "This guy was standing there, 10 feet away. The guy ran by him, and the dog went
Oh, dude.
and just jumped on him."
If they run that dog around that car, they're like, "You can get out." "No, I'm good. I'll sit in my car."
No.
When the dog comes up to the front of the car, then I get out. And then when he gets done, I'm like, "Hey," but we have this one, and he's an older dog. He's been in service for like 10 years, 11 years. I want to say, like, when I graduated high school in 2010, he was, like, and he
In
is
his prime.
fucking meanest dog. And I told the cane officer one night, we had a family call in a wealthy neighborhood, said that they believed someone was in their house. So he brings the dog, and we start doing just a perimeter. And you would do, like they have scent walls and things like that in training, and they teach them. So I told the cane officer, I said, you keep that fucking demon on a leash, man, because, like, I got snipped one time on the wrist bone right here, and I had long sleeves on my uniform. It was over the winter. Snipped, and it bit me, and he caught, like, just a little bit of skin, and I was like,
Did you get a check?
I probably should,
Like, break that book out. Break that checkbook
but,
out.
like, that goes back into, it's a use of force, right? So, and going back to, like, uses of force that officers have, there's a variety of things. I think they interviewed some cop killers, and 60% of them, they asked, why'd you kill the cops? Why'd you kill that officer? And he said, because he looked like it. I looked like because I thought I could. He looked like easy prey. He was the only thing standing between me and my freedom. And so I get pissed when I see officers like that they don't physically train. I'm not saying go out and get 4 black belts, but your confidence is going to skyrocket. So, like, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I did powerlifting, I've done, all these different, wrestling. So it's like, if I have to, I can defend myself. But some of these guys, and some of it's genetic, like, you're 21, I don't think you're fully grown yet, especially your brain, your frontal lobe isn't really matured until you're like 25. And some of these guys got to run around the shower to get wet. I'm like, dude, like, you need a fucking sandwich.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? You got to, like...
Some of the cops are huge. It's
the-
like you're not
the other
chasing
way.
anybody down.
Well, I'm 220 pounds. I'm not chasing anybody either.
Yeah.
I would rather, but you know what? I would rather be on the end of that than I can run like a gazelle, but you punch me and I just turn to dust.
Right.
Where I can't go hands-on with someone. I have to use a taser or I have to rely on. So that's the thing. That's an issue. I can see people having an issue. I had a guy ask me a question about that. He goes, man, why? This guy he's a regular Joe. Why did he get tased? And I'm like, well, I wasn't there. Like, I will never, like we were talking earlier, I will never try to Monday morning quarterback something if
Right.
I don't know the full, like, if I wasn't there, but God, dude, you could have just grab the guy. Yeah, he might swing on you, but you should be fairly competent enough. Most guys are, depending on, but
I mean, look, like, I hear people, oh, he could have done that, he could have done that.
you weren't there,
right,
bro. It's
yeah,
different. It's
right.
different. It's totally different.
I was gonna say, first of all, your adrenaline's, it's through the roof. And on top of that, as far as me wrestling with somebody, if I was a police officer and I have a weapon, like, my fear is
They're going to get it from you.
this guy gets my weapon from me. Like, is it an unfair advantage for me to pop somebody from a distance? Yes, but I'm not going to let him get close enough to get a hold of my weapon. Like, if he overpowers me and gets my weapon, now I'm done. So you're not getting that close. I mean, so I get it. And when people, they, like you said, they rethink, well, you should have done that. You weren't there. You don't know. Like, it's the same thing like with a jury trial. People like, they'll hear something on CNN and they've already made up their mind what should have happened in the trial. Yeah, but you weren't sitting in the jury box and you didn't hear everything. So the jury did, and this is what they decided.
Yeah.
Like, the cop was there, the 3 cops were there, the guy was there. I was watching something on YouTube one time. Guy had there's like 4 or 5 cops with guns on this guy. They're firing tasers at him, they're shooting him with they're trying everything. He had like he had like a samurai sword and everything.
Oh,
I thought, bro, I mean, it's comical, but honestly, I'm not
what's funny is they can
fuck
close
with
the
this.
distance on you so fast.
Right.
I mean, what's that 21 feet rule? Which that's kind of been dispelled, but it opened my eyes to a lot, because going back to the African American, like, my ties to that community, I had a lot of guys. I lost a lot of friends too. So, like, Simon, the guy that I stepped on his head.
Yeah.
Dude, he will not speak to me to this day.
Why?
He's
Because
like,
you're
oh, bro, you're a cop, bro. I said, you know what? I said, I'm the same guy I was back then. I do not believe in. Now, if you think we're all buddy and friends with each other, no. There's guys where I'm like, and you know what? The good thing is, 99.8% of the guys I work with, we're going to go on the easier side of things. But the problem with some of the younger cops, like 21, 22, guys that don't have any life experience. They've never been in a situation, man, where they felt utter despair and helplessness. Like, that's a good teacher.
All right.
Like when you went to prison, you were like, dude, I was crying like a small. Like you're
Yes.
oh, you're done.
Absolutely.
Bro, you're like, what can you do? Okay, man, I'm gonna unlock the doors and let you out now. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. No, bro, you gotta deal with that shit, and you're gonna have to find a way to get through the next what would have been 26 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
Luckily, I'm a cutthroat individual.
Yeah, dude. I was kind of scared about coming here because I was like, he's gonna snitch on me. I'm just, but seriously, like, and you know what about that? Oh God, like, I tell people, I was actually talking to Bree about this because I was gonna go on his channel too, but my perspective is I will never try to get myself in a situation, but bro, 26 years. 26 years, you're gonna die. You're gonna die in prison.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look, and I think we talked about this on the phone where we were saying.
Well, his people flipped on him too. The two guys he was with, he was involved with two other guys, right?
Oh, you mean Big Hurt?
Big Hurt, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He was not happy with it.
He's this SD card filled up on you, and you're like, oh shit.
God, he was upset.
I love when you're like, this is a terrible interview.
It's horrible. This isn't good for me.
Hey, you're the type of guy though. You know how you got guys that are like, they'll make a story up, or they'll tell you like, yeah, I said this to this motherfucker. You're like, no, you didn't. But with you, like, I fully believe what you, like, you just don't care. Like when you're talking to the guy that smacked you, you're like, oh, I'm too old for you, and I have my diploma.
Oh yeah, that's Billy.
Billy. Yeah,
Oh,
like
God.
I fully believe you said that to that dude, man. And
Oh, yeah.
he fucking slapped you.
Well, we were all, but here's the whole thing. We've been locked up for years. We've been joking with each other for years. It's just like you
Well,
said.
you said he was
one
getting
day,
ready to go home, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that was what did it.
I don't
You
know.
said that because guys,
I mean,
they get on edge.
Thought about that, but I remember it's so funny too because when we both got grabbed,
You thought it was a chair. You're like, oh, it's gonna bounce back.
when we both got grabbed and by
Yeah.
the cops, and we were going, and we hadn't been spoken to yet, right? And we're in the van. He's like, bro, just don't say nothing. I go, what? He said, oh, officer, I'm telling him everything. Fuck you, you're out of your mind. I'm gonna stand up for you. Fuck you.
What do you say? Like 4 people that said that weren't even
Every
in the room.
yeah, I was gonna say there were like three people in the room,
Oh,
and there were like
right.
4 people that
happens
had
on-
said something.
You get in an accident, just a car accident, and you get like a person walk up. Yeah, so this vehicle went and turned this way and hit this guy into this. I'm like, okay, which vehicle were you driving? I love hitting with that. Which vehicle were you in? Oh, I wasn't involved. Oh, okay. Well, where are the people that are involved?
Right.
Like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, and that's how people are, man. And you never know. It's like the game of telephone. By the time it gets around,
Yeah.
it's like
It's trained.
there's a shank involved. There's drugs. There's this.
It's
and
always, just like your memory in general. Like I'll tell a story and then I'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, "Nah, don't you remember? This is what happened." And I'm like, "I thought this guy did this," and they're like, "No, this." And then I'm like, "Did it?" And I was so sure that I was
Yeah, I'm
correct
gonna-
telling the story, and I'm like, "I thought," and then I'm like, now I'm not even sure.
That's-
Your mind alters things over time.
And when you have a busy night at work, so I work third shift. You get calls and calls and calls. There's nights where, especially, so when you're in field training, you are expected, and rightfully so, to take every variety of call you can. So you'll be what's called like a rover. You will just rove around. You won't have a designated area. And then, like, say a call comes out like a DUI or a rape or whatever comes out, they will have the rookie, the guy that's in field training, take that call for experience. And I remember, dude, I'd be like 11, 12 police reports deep. And I remember just staring at my laptop, and I feel like I'm melting. People think it's easy. And then you go through phases. So you have 3 phases, which is the San Jose model. You have first phase, second phase, third phase, and you call it the ghost or final phase. Your FTO is a ghost. They just wear plain clothes, and they don't say anything unless you severely do something. They have to intervene. But so what you're talking about with memory, you're like, dude, I don't even fucking remember what happened on the call.
Right.
So you got to go back in and log into your police your body camera footage and watch the whole thing through.
That
The
takes a
victim
while.
said,
There's 45 minutes.
Well, I'll skim through, but
Yeah.
you might forget a certain part, or you might forget because somebody might have made a threat to commit a forcible felony. Like, I'm going to kill this dude. I'm going to, You have to put. How was it worded? Who said it?
Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, I'm like we were saying earlier. Look, I know there's tons of paperwork involved because when I would order the Freedom of Information Act, and I would get people's police reports, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, there's four. I got 4 different officers all telling me the same story. Every one of them had to fill out a piece of had to fill something out.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's to me that is you run into a lot of problems with that. Like I was telling you, the primary officer is going to write the synopsis of everything and then the things they did.
Right. Well, no, there's always like one that's 2 or 3 pages. And then there's the other cops that got there. And then they're like, they're not, typically they're pretty much saying the same thing, but from a different perspective. They're all kind of saying the same thing. But there's usually 1 or 2 that are really big. And then there's the other ones are a couple of pages. But every officer has to write, in my experience, just from getting the paper, like 4 guys get there, you get 4 little reports. You know, if there was interaction, I guess. And it's weird. It's like, God, every time these guys go out, they seem to be writing a report.
Yeah, it didn't know. I mean, not every call. Like, you get a lot of your bulk carrier calls, thankfully, is just like, even a domestic, you know, it's like, was anyone hurt? Or was anyone, did you beat the piss out of each other? Like, we had one call and the lady's like, look, we beat the piss out of each other.
The reports I'm getting weren't domestic. Like, there were serious crime. Like, these are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're going to, dude, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, we just had a call the other night, and it was like, oh, you know, go to this parking lot of this business, call our advice, someone's been stabbed, and we're, you know, you're running license sirens, and you're just kind of like, oh, it's in my beat, too, and I'm like, God,
Right.
And you got to get statements and photos, and then you're going to have to go to the hospital and follow up with them there, and yeah, it is. And that's, honestly, man, you get better with that kind of stuff. Like, when I started, my FTO was like, look, bro, like, the refreshing thing about you is your spelling and your punctuation and you can structure, but he's like, your speed and you're putting too much detail into this. Like, we don't need to know. I mean, I wasn't doing this for real. He was just being, so he's like, we don't need to know the fucking weather.
Right.
Just get to the, you know, meat and potatoes of what happened, and then just try to figure out, and obviously, and then I would do, what was my other problem? I was writing reports and I would write them in the wrong fucking order. He's like, that didn't happen until, he's like, this paragraph didn't happen until down here, and vice versa. So you got to so I just copied
chronologically. Yeah,
it would be off, and it wasn't easy, man. It wasn't. And you know, going back to I tell people all the time, all the things I went through, all the tests, all the you know, they really do try to make sure no one slips through the cracks. But things happen. I mean, you know, and it's gotten even. I don't see worse. The leash has gotten even shorter. So like when, is it Mike? Was this for Dowd?
Mike Dowd.
Right. So he was a cop in what? 80s, 70s?
Yeah.
Dude,
Probably.
those guys. No body cameras, nothing.
No.
Now, if I go on a call, let's say you and I, they call it 69, and we're sitting there like this. We're just sitting there hanging out, and you go to a hot call, and you light your siren, you turn your lights on, there's a switch you hit. Any car that's in a vicinity of that, it will turn on your body camera and your car camera now. It turns it all
on. Right.
It's getting to where it's like, and I'll be honest with you, I am 110% for. I love body cameras. I love them. Because there's there's your version of events, there's my version of events, and there's the truth.
Right.
Like, I had a jury trial, and it was terrible. One of my pet peeves is when people don't dim their high beams. They're blinding the piss out of you.
Right.
And I flicked my lights back at him. He doesn't turn them off. Pulled him over. I can't tell if it's a male or a female. I can't tell their, you know, race. I can't tell anything. Well, it's a black guy, and he cracks his window about that far. And the officers, when I read the license plate on it before I pulled him over, they're like, we just dealt with him at the Circle K gas station. He's going to be a problem. So he cracks his window like an inch. Oh, my God. When you run someone's license plate, you get their BMV return. I get their name, their address, their license status, all that stuff.
Right.
And then you can run them through NCIC and all that. So I called him by his first name. I walked up, I said, hey, so-and-so, how you know my name? I said, what? I got it off your return. I just ran your license plate. He's like, no, you've been looking for me. I said, what? I said, he said, what'd you pull me over for? I said, can you dim your headlights for me, please? It's like, he said, that's all the fuck you pulled me over for? I said, yeah. He takes off on me. So we get in a pursuit. Like 2 blocks. Well, he takes off. He went from a verbal warning to a felony. That quick. So we go there. Now we've got guns and all this shit and beanbag shotguns. And it escalated to something. And I remember yelling out to him. I'm like, dude, get out of the car. I'm like, please. You are escalating this. Like, you do not want them to send that dog in a car. So we hit him for resisting law enforcement with a vehicle. And I remember thinking, like, this is so fucking stupid, man. Like, I wish the guy just went and not even pulled him over, you know? So
Right.
he what's it called, sui juris? He represents himself.
Oh, that's good.
And he pleads guilty, and it's a felony case, so he elects to have a jury trial. So we're in...
Please not guilty.
I'm sorry, pleads not guilty. Thank you. So we have a jury trial, dude. And I'm like, all right, 8 hours.
8 hours for that.
Now, in a way, he doesn't understand the way the law works, because all he had to do was say, I didn't have my high beams on, and you could suppress everything onward.
Right.
The stop. You have to, the grounds for the stop was unlawful. You're good. You can suppress that.
Right.
He admitted in his opening statements that he had his high beams on. Why didn't I be he's so stupid, man. And I'm just thinking, like, why? What was the point of this?
Sorry.
Hey, so I appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, if you like the video, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so that you get notifications of videos like this. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I try and respond to as many as possible, and share the video to all your friends and family. I really appreciate you watching, and see ya.